Wonderful. So welcome again, everyone, to our, this is our final community class for the fall, by the way. Welcome to our final community class for the fall. What it means to be an activist and anti-racist educator. We're going to get into that in a minute. My name is Dr. Andrew B. Campbell, aka DR.ABC. And yes, I remind everyone, it's not a gimmick, it's not something cute. Those are actually my initials. My name is Andrew Bruce Campbell. My mom knew what she was doing when she was naming me, right? She had no idea it would have been so beautiful, but that's how it is. I see you. I see all my students. I see students from LHA 1042. Let me say welcome. I know you, Jennifer. You're always here. You're always present. And I know you must have said, oh, Dr. Campbell, forget us. No, I did not. So sorry about that. But this class is an official one of CTL 5708. And we do have members of my leadership class, which is LHA 1042. And those students who are in that class, over 26 of them who are present, are actually working on an assignment that talks about diversity leadership, and they are doing this kind of work. So it is absolutely important that we do this kind of work. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to begin this session with a land acknowledgement. It's very important for us to do that, not as a recital, but as a practice. And there are many ways for us to do this. There are many ideas and ways people are doing it. But for us, we want to just center on a reminder of the purpose and the fact that this is important to us, and we go beyond the acknowledgements and we go to action. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And I know many of you are coming from different places. I'm going to ask many of you right now to take a minute, just take a minute and put in the chat. This is part of our interaction. Put in the chat, where are you coming from, the land that you are coming from this evening and you're participating from, you're sharing from. I'm going to ask you to take a minute to do so. Thank you so much. I see that. I see that. I see that. I see the Mississaugas of the Credit. I see that. I see that. And there are ways for you to know not just the area you're coming from, but the traditional territory. So there are ways for you to do that, for you to know about the traditional territory. Thank you, Jennifer Brown. I know you. I see you coming from 3 to 19 there in Caledon. I see persons there who are sharing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Absolutely. From Winnipeg, Manitoba Territory 1. I see you there, the Dakota, the Cree, the Ojibwe. I see you there. Thank you so much. I see that, Nikita. I see you joining from the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Language people. And those things are important for us to grab and to gain the knowledge from. What do we mean by unceded? That's not the session to discuss that tonight, but I want for you to be curious. I want you to be curious. I want you to be intentional. When you come into this space and you hear this kind of conversation, you ask yourself, what is the meaning of this? And you jump on your Google. You jump on your Google and you find out, or you go deeper if you have relationship with Indigenous folks to talk about these things, to understand what it means to be coming from a certain part of the land. You've heard about the red dress. You've heard about land back. What those things mean. We're in the lecture already. Oh, I'm in the lecture already. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you realize that. I'm sure you pick that up. What does it mean when we talk about being anti-racist? What does that mean when it comes to indigeneity and when it comes to Indigenous people and it comes to land? What are those issues we are struggling with? What are those issues that we have contentions with? What are those issues we are suffering with? It's important for us to do that. And so thank you so much for that. We move right along, and I'm going to share with you an ancestral acknowledgement. This class, for those of you who may not realize, is a special topics class, and the title of this course is Black Educator Identity and Pedagogy. So having that ancestral acknowledgement is always something powerful for us to do. We acknowledge the Indigenous Africans who were forcibly removed from their native lands and dispersed across the New World. This involuntary migration heavily contributed to the movement of African-descended people across the African diaspora to places like Canada. As students and learners, we deem it highly necessary to think deeper and examine the processes that led to the disposition of indigenous peoples on this land and settler colonialism, stolen people on stolen land. In entering a conversation about anti-Black racism, it is important to center the humanity of Black children and Black families and to examine systems such as the education system that act upon them. And this comes to us from Natasha Henry, president then of the Ontario Black History Society, education consultant, historian, and now assistant professor at York University. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to welcome at this time one of our colleague who is here, Ardivan Izadarad. I'm going to add Ardivan to add Ardivan to the spin. Thank you, Ardivan, for being here. Enough love, enough love. When you see the book cover, you're going to realize that Ardivan led the work that this actual lecture comes out of. The book here, the book that I have, and he'll be putting into the chat later on a link for a discount for the book. We're not here to sell book tonight, no, but it's important for you to have access to the book, right? So that link is going to be in the chat as well. And I want to let you know how powerful this book is. And something important before I turn over to you, Ardivan, to introduce Manu. And if Manu is not here, you will do the welcome on behalf of the Canadians Association for Social Justice Education. And also, Ardivan will be playing a video for us so us to get an understanding of the organization and the ways in which you can participate as well as a teacher, as an educator, as a grad student, as a community leader, activist, as an ally, as a person who is here for social justice. And so that is important that we're going to share that in a minute. But I just want to say thank you for the work that you do, Ardivan. Thank you for the ways in which you have pulled into community. You're going to see later on in my slide, everybody, when I talk about the many ways for you to disrupt and racism and the ways for you to show up. A lot of us have to learn. I know it's not easy for everyone to just grasp it, but that's our job as educators. That's our calling as educators, to help you to understand that there are many ways for you to disrupt racism, and many ways. And one of the ways in which I can tell you I am honored is the publications, and not because I'm a professor and I need publications so I could keep my job or I could get tenure, because we know the politics of those things. Let's not pretend that it's not real. But I could tell you stories of me talking to professors way above me and saying to them, I am reserving my writing to write stories about us. I write my stories. And I must tell you, I am honored and privileged and humble, but I'm also extremely proud that I've walked in those words honestly, that my writing reflects my lived experience. My writing reflects my journey. My writing and research reflects the things that I care deeply about, and not just be guided by universities to say, this is a good thing to write so you can get a job here. I will always have a job. Dr. ABC, why are you going there? Because I have to go there for community. I will always have a job and I will always do well because my gifts and my talent will make room for me. And some of you who are pressured and constantly in a state of hurt and harm to your own self because of the ways you have carried the pain and the hurt and the deficit thinking and the racism and the anti-Blackness, you have to start asserting yourself a little bit more and affirming yourself a little bit more, knowing who you are. That's why you came here. You came here for the gems. I just dropped it. I hope you pick it up. You came here for the gems. Ardivan, it's over to you. Please, everybody, put your hands together and give Ardivan a warm welcome. And don't turn on your mic now. Use those emoji app.
All right, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Dr. ABC. Thanks for holding this space. On behalf of the Canadian Association for Social Justice Education, we're honored to partner up with the community class and make folks aware. It aligns well with the content and the purpose of the lecture. I know some of the executive members are here. Manu sent her regrets. She is the founder and the president, but we are a mighty team that has grown. We're just in our second year and part of CSSE, which is the largest educational conference gathering with next year being at George Brown College in Toronto. And so we hope many of you can become members. We put some relevant links in the chat. We're on LinkedIn, and we are going to share a 5-minute video where you can learn more about who we are and what we do and how we can mobilize knowledge and amplify your work and what you're doing in community and in different settings. And with that, I'll share my screen and show the video, which we also shared it in the chat.
Hi everyone, my name is Manu Sharma. I am honored and humbled to be the founder and president of CASJ, and it is my privilege to welcome you to today's event. I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Secwepemc Ulu Nation, a nation of 17 bands, here at Thompson Rivers University. I'm an associate professor in the Faculty of Education and Social Work. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Tanya Manning-Lewis. I am an assistant teaching professor at Thompson Rivers University, and I'm currently the vice president and program chair of CASJ. Welcome to you all.
Hello, my name is Shelley Mehta, and I'm program chair with CASJ. I'm also faculty and coordinator at George Brown College.
Hello, my name is Alana. I'm an assistant teaching professor in the School of Education at Thompson Rivers University and a member of the CASJ executive. I'm also the program chair for the conference coming up in the spring.
Hello. My name is Esma, and I am the communication director at CASJ. I am also the chair and an assistant professor at Niagara University, and welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Haley Clark and I am your Treasurer Secretary for CASJ, and I'm currently a third-year PhD student at Queen's University. Nice to meet you all.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je me nomme Dr. Dani Diaz et mes pronoms sont elle, she, elle. And I'm going to be switching French and English here, but I am member at large representing the French academic community of the Canadian Association for Social Justice Education. And I'm here with my wonderful colleague Ardavan, who will present himself after. So juste petite information sur moi. Je suis professeure adjointe à l'Université de l'Ontario français et comme j'ai dit tantôt en anglais, je suis représentante liaison pour la communauté académique francophone à l'Association canadienne pour l'éducation et la justice sociale. Il nous fait grandement plaisir de vous parler aujourd'hui. And now to you, Ardavan.
So, well, it's nice to meet everyone and serve as part of your CASJ executive. My name is Dr. Ardavan Zadarat. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm an assistant professor in the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier University, Waterloo campus in Ontario. And we do have some upcoming events, and we look forward to seeing you and building some camaraderie and relationship amongst our members for the upcoming 2024-2025 year. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Et si vous n'êtes pas encore membre, nous vous invitons à bras ouverts et suivez notre site web pour les événements et les activités qui sont à venir bientôt. Au revoir. Take care.
And TQL. Hi, everyone. My name's Lucy Delgado. I'm a Two-Spirit Métis woman from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and a member of the Manitoba Métis Federation. On CASJ, I am the member at large Indigenous. I'm also an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba, focusing on Métis education, anti-oppressive education, and queer theories.
Hi, my name is Shaghayak Bahrami. I'm one of the graduate student representatives on CASJ, and I'm a PhD student at Simon Fraser University.
Good day, everyone. My name is Oshutade Olubokola Buki. I'm one of the graduate representatives of CASJ. I'm currently on my MEd program at Thompson Rivers University. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jessica Taylor Charland. I'm one of the graduate student reps on CASJ, and I'm also a PhD student at OISE at the University of Toronto.
Hi everyone, it is a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Melissa Daou. I am a second year PhD candidate at the University of Ottawa in Curriculum Studies. I'm also one of your graduate student rep for CASJ, so looking forward to meeting you all. Thank you.
I'm Denisha Griffin, doctoral candidate in the Department of Education at the University of Victoria. It is indeed my pleasure to serve in the capacity of student representative on CASJ's executive.
All right, so we're in our second year. We're one of the largest associations, and we hope you can become a member. It's only, I think, $15, and there's also subsidized fees. So something to consider as we try to amplify the work of social justice education across Canada with a large range of members. Okay, should I go right into the poem, Dr. ABC?
Absolutely. Open with the poem.
Awesome. So as Dr. ABC mentioned, the poem I'm going to read was part of a book we co-edited titled Enacting Anti-Racist and Activist Pedagogies in Teacher Education, Canadian Perspectives. We are good friends and colleagues. We've been through the trenches, and we also enjoy and celebrate the joys and the milestones we accomplished together. So I'm going to read a snippet of the poem. But before I read the poem, if you experience some sort of discrimination or frustration in your role, I want you to press and put 111 into the chat to see how common what we're talking about is. And I noticed there's 86 people on the call and a lot of ones coming in, which speaks to the point of why we need to continue this work and do it together and come up with innovative ways to do it. So here's how the poem goes. There's no such thing as a safe space, so let's cultivate more brave spaces. We need multiple perspectives, we need uncomfortable conversations, and we need to commit to doing the work socially, culturally, emotionally, and spiritually. Self-care and self-love to heal, hope, and commit to action. Hashtag dismantle hierarchies. Open doors versus gatekeeping and keeping doors shut. Avoid saviorism mentality. Ask questions and listen. Do not make assumptions about others' needs. Disrupt and dismantle the weaponization and fear of difference. It's okay if you do not know anything about a specific culture, religion, or community. You do not need to be an expert to hold space for critical conversations and to commit to action to unlearn and challenge injustice. Do not let institutions and their stereotypical representation and colonial tools sell you a biased narrative. Who is telling the story? For what purpose? What perspectives are excluded? Who is profiting? At what and whose expense? Ask questions and listen. How can I help? What can I contribute? The curriculum of life, culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, culturally sustaining pedagogies, pedagogies in the flesh, pedagogies of rage and anger, counter narratives of pain and suffering. Listen to your students. Learn from them. Who are they? What do they do outside of school hours? What are their unmet needs? Create opportunities to make mistakes and grow together as a community. Indulge in teachable moments that arise spontaneously, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't just talk about the importance of challenging injustice and systemic inequities, model it. And along the way, share your own struggles and vulnerabilities as a form of strength. Don't be fixated with perfection, but rather with how far we have come in dismantling hierarchies of power that hold on to privilege at all costs, at the expense of death, at the expense of suffering to others, literally and figuratively. Commit to action. Do something about social injustices that impact your learners. Stand with them. Guide them to take action. They are more than a grade. Disrupt deficit thinking. They do care about their education. Vulnerable circumstances lead to negative behaviors and shitty choices. Seek to understand instead of judging. Silence and neutrality are a stand. It's not a non-stance. Create spaces where students experience belonging, where they can be who they are without the fear to conform. Allow them to dress as they please and talk in their home language. Allow for a little slang in the classroom with cultural accents and celebrations versus punishment. Be dope. Have a lit classroom. The game of conformity taught in school is overrated, as it reproduces social class and minimizes opportunities for upward social mobility. Instead of teaching conformity, teach to transgress. Hashtag bell hooks. Teach to overcome challenges. Teach to care and do something about it. Teach to stay authentic to your true self and values. Teach to express resistance of birth. Teach to mobilize and be strategic through collaboration, allyship, solidarity, and co-conspiratorship. Teach to dismantle hierarchies of power, prioritizing profit over community needs. Praxis, reflection, and action, critical conscientization, dialogical approaches, disrupt the hegemony, unite through passion, struggle, pain, and suffering. Remember the small wins. Remember the defeats. Remember the pain and joy. Remember the anger. Tell stories that matter. Cover content in your classroom that is relevant to the lives of your students. Disrupt the syllabi, course content, normalize assessment practices. Create representation that reflects the diversity of the people you serve and the diversity of issues impacting their lives. Bring guest speakers with relevant lived experiences into your classroom. Be mindful of the positionality of the authors and the guest speakers relative to the topics being discussed. Do they have relevant lived experiences beyond a PhD? Prioritize meeting the needs of your students more than fixation with grades, profits, or savings for the institution. This is an activist pedagogy. This is an anti-racist pedagogy to teaching and learning, to reduce the harm of colonization, white supremacy, meritocracy, and neoliberalism, to center the voices on the margins, to amplify the voices of those who have historically been excluded due to deficit thinking, to lift people who have been oppressed by systemic oppression and barriers, to facilitate access to capital, social support services, and opportunities, to break the psychological and spiritual shackles of colonization, to learn to love again, love ourselves and others who are different than us, to heal as a community, to disrupt the intergenerational cycle of hate, poverty, trauma, and cultural genocide, to unlearn, revive, and rejuvenate, to remember, to decolonize, to indigenize, to continue to identify the unmet needs of students and communities through relationship building and establishment of trust, to do better and be better, to care, to support students to go from surviving to thriving, to be intentional, to not always take no for an answer, to always ask why, to know the difference between equality and equity, to be inclusive beyond performative politics, to promote liberation, radical love, healing, and freedom of expression, to emphasize education being more than a letter grade or a future job, and to center the curriculum of life. And I'll conclude by saying, you are beautiful educators with emotions and ambitions that matter. There'll be good days and bad days, but we will not give up. You are an inspirational educator who can and will make a world of difference in your students' lives and others. You are an activist, so show it through your actions. You are an advocate, so show it through your actions. It starts with a vision. Find support, heal, hope, and take action as a community. Let's all do our part to make the vision a reality. Hashtag one day at a time and one community at a time. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Enough love, enough love. I see the applause. I see the 100 in the chat. I see that. And I hope students who are in the room, or most of you, or many of you are students, I hope that inspires you. I know maybe about 3 students who are poets and you're writing poetry. I hope that inspires you to see that Professor Ardivan Izadarad, who is so well published, also have an entire poem that is a chapter in a book of this nature. So you run with your gifts. You run with your gifts. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're going to jump right into our conversation and continue where Ardivan left off. So we're having this conversation this evening in our class. And we're talking about what it means to be an anti-racist activist educator. One of the popular things we hear a lot is somebody saying, well, I am not racist. That's a common statement, right? Well, I'm not racist. And when I do these conversations, I always say, well, nobody's accusing you of being racist. Nobody, I doubt anybody would come to a workshop and tell you something like that. But what we're saying is that the opposite of racist is not, I am not racist. The opposite of racist is not, I am not racist. The opposite of racist is being anti-racist. It's intentionality. It is Ardivan used the word, it is the choices we make. Becoming anti-racist, as one said, involves a deliberate and thoughtful effort, including you begin with yourself, a deep self-examination of assumptions, perceptions, legislation, policies, disparities in lived experience. There are many ways to begin this journey. So we're talking about a journey, and let me just make it clear, none of us are here in the position or in the seat of an expert that we know everything, so we don't need to continue learning. I have always said, for me, one of my best qualities that I love about myself is I'm a very good student. I'm a very good student. I will sit in class and I will listen and take notes and participate as much as I'm a teacher, because that's how you grow. You know, I was in class on Tuesday, just on Tuesday, and we're talking about learning and unlearning, and talking about things that I learned on my trip to Germany this summer. And I mentioned that about the Holocaust and the pink triangle, and a couple of my students who were very much aware were sharing information. And I said to my class, this summer was the first time I heard about the pink triangle. You could Google that in what happened in the Holocaust with LGBTQ folks. So I want you to understand the idea to be scared because you feel like you don't know everything. That's a part of the problem. You can't know everything. And far too many of us are walking around in the name of expert when we haven't been intentional in our own personal journey. So I'm encouraging you to be intentional about your journey. I'm speaking to students, I'm speaking to community. I see community people here from as far as Nova Scotia. I know you, I see you. You are in that space where you are continuing learning and growing so you can act and do. That is why we're here. This is not a performance or a showpiece class. This is a real, regular class of us learning on that journey. 3 things I want to start when we have this conversation. In 2020, when we had what I call the spring of George Floyd, there was a lot of conversation about having courageous conversations. It was one of the most popular terminology. And then all of a sudden, people became uncomfortable with these courageous conversations. And we kind of stopped hearing the term courageous. And then myself and Ardivan wrote this chapter in a book where we encourage us to have brave conversations. We have to understand that this work that we are doing in anti-racist work is going to require of us, it's going to demand of us some courageous conversations. It's going to demand and require of us some brave conversations, and it will require of us some uncomfortable conversations. I think that's a reality I want to kind of sink in us a little bit, because every time I go to certain spaces, we are having these very discussions about who is uncomfortable and why they need to be more comfortable, and people need to take a break and all that kind of stuff. What we are doing in a lot of these spaces are centering ourselves. We are centering ourselves. Some other writer called it white fragility. I want to talk about how we center ourselves more than centering those who we are called to serve. And I know for a leadership course, like I'm teaching leadership, we talk about transformative leadership a lot. We talk about transformational leadership, inclusive leadership, diversity leadership. We go on and on. I could give you a list. One of the things we don't talk much about is the servant leadership. It's in the textbook. A servant leader, the ways in which you make sure that those who follow you are served. And when we come into these conversations, people say they want to be activists, they want to be allies, they want to be accomplices, they want to be co-conspirators. Everybody wants to use a terminology, forgetting that one of the big part of being one of those persons is centering others. And so I want to leave that with you, that as we're talking about this conversation, Ann Lopez, who wrote the foreword, talk about the goal of this book is to focus on ways in which anti-racist and activist pedagogies can be enacted in teacher education. Simply mean, what can you do in your class? What can you do in your class? What can you do in your space? What will you do in your school? If you notice, when Ardivan played the video, everybody was introducing themselves. People were talking about, I am a student, I am a PhD, I'm a doctoral candidate, I'm a master's student, I'm a professor of, I'm a teaching stream, I am a tenure track. We are walking in titles, and the titles are associated with teaching and learning. I want to ask ourselves, how intentional and deliberate are you? How thoughtful are you when you're thinking about this? There's someone who is on this call. I won't call her name. She's a librarian in a school in the Peel District region who I've known for years. And we are on social media together. And every now and then, she would post about her classroom. And there'll be a picture about some book she's learning. There'll be pictures about 2S LGBTQ. There'll be pictures about, she's doing something in the library or something in a program or something in the school, where it happens right through the school year. These are the ways in which you intentionally do the work, so your work reflect your anti-racist stance. Saying and holding the mic and telling people you are anti-racist don't do much for people. It don't do much, because all of us, and many of us, are paid to hold a mic and we say anything we want to say, especially when we are trying to make sure we are in the know, we are in the space, we are in the frame. And so we have to be very careful. I remember Nina Simone, the great Nina Simone, talks about the artist, and she says that the job of the artist is to reflect the time. That has never left me. And I asked myself, Sarah, how am I reflecting the time in my work? How am I showing up in my classroom? It says there, your perception, legislation, policies, disparities in lived experiences. There are many ways to begin this journey, all of which involve taking direct action to eradicate systematic racism. I'm going to tell you a very personal story. When I started getting into advocacy work, I used to be a little bit sick and tired of going to I've been to many conferences, and I would just see that people get 15 minutes to talk, and people travel from all over the world, and you go to a conference and everybody gets 15 minutes to talk, and everybody talk, we exchange, pleasantries. It's like a really amazing space, and then we leave. And I remember one of my first earlier time of reflection as a doctoral student was to question, is that it? I remember on a flight from, I think it was from Vancouver, British Columbia, I went to AERA, and I remember coming back thinking, is that it? We go, we talk for 15 minutes, somebody asks a question, we wear badges that we are professor of and tenure and all the fancy stuff. We have some good food, especially the university pay for it. I used to pay for mine myself out of my own pocket for years. And I was like, is that it? And then I start to realize, no, it's not it. People choose to do that. People choose to close their books and wrote up their script afterwards and just go on their flight back home. And there are people who choose that after that, they go into the community. They are part of grassroots. I'm always impressed when I meet professors like Ardivan Izadaran, who is a professor in a very formal space, but outside of the university, you are in community digging and doing. I am one of those who believe you need to really walk some of the talk. So I am very intentional how I show up in community. I'm very intentional when a young group of Black folks says to me, Dr. ABC, can you come and talk to us? I am very intentional about how I show up. I'm very intentional about how I support them. I'm very intentional about what I charge them, even if I charge them, because that is a part of what I do. So ask yourself, in this work of being anti-racist, what are the actions I am taking? That's your personal question tonight. What are your own actions, Jennifer? What are your own actions, Danny Dias? What are your own actions, West, Carolyn Roberts, Dennis? What are your own actions? What are the little things you can do? And we're going to get into that a little bit more, because I want to help you to show you that you can do it. And don't be scared. You can do it. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit to kind of give you some intentionality around the things that you can do. So as we have this conversation, here is one of my favorite diagram I always like to use in the work. And we talk about becoming anti-racist. The willingness is to learn and to unlearn. Many of us don't care to learning. We think we know it all. We think we know everything about Indigenous folks, and we have not been to one Indigenous gathering. You have to come to a place of cultural humility, educational humility, a place where you can grow, a place where you can grow, a place where you are learning. Because when we sit in the fear zone, you can't do nothing. That's why when you go to these workshops and we start talking about white supremacy, or we talk about white privilege, or we talk about prejudice, or we talk about bias, people get very uncomfortable. People feel they're being attacked. Like nobody's trying to attack you. You're not, listen, you are not that important for someone to go to an entire big conference of 500 people and just choose to attack you. It's not that serious about you. That's you centering yourself again. You have to ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I logged on? It is because I want to grow. So I want you to understand becoming anti-racist is about learning and it's about growth. It's about being honest and vulnerable. Like I said to my students on Tuesday, I knew nothing about the pink triangle. A LGBTQ person like myself who's from Jamaica, who have done so much learning and growing, it was my first time understanding and knowing about the pink triangle and what it meant. And somebody may say, really, Dr. ABC? Well, you should have known that. I would tell you, no, I should have known nothing. I am growing. I am learning. There's so much that I need to learn. So much I need to grow. I was in Ghana the other day, and I went to 2 different events where I wanted to learn about pouring libation. My first time seeing libation poured as a person of African descent, as a person who wants to understand African indigeneity and understand my where I'm from. It was Professor Joe Kiwan in 2019 at an event poured libation. My first time seeing it with my own 2 eyes, and I will never forget how my body reacted. I will never forget. I knew this was something special, but I didn't know what it was really. I use those 2 examples to say to you, sometimes the institution forces us to be inauthentic and pretentious and fake because we need to show up as experts. Expert in what? Expert in what? I know a lot, and I've been called upon a lot, but I can guarantee you there's not many people in this world who will say to you, I have ever looked at them and said, well, I'm an expert in this. I don't think you'll find 3 persons that can tell you that I've said that to them, because I'm always learning. I love to be a student. And so I want to leave you with that. And then this other visual I saw. This is the second one I fell in love with. This is my favorite one. And this is second one I fell in love with. And it talks about the difference between anti-racist and, oh, I am not racist. Because when you say you are not racist, then you're going to the color blind, right? I don't see color. We want you to see color. So if there's anybody here out of the 81 persons that are in the room who are still using that phrase, I want you to stop using it as of tonight. We want you to see color. We understand where it's coming from. It's coming from a good place, that you think everybody's equal. Well, everybody's not equal. Everybody's not being treated equal. And you think that, well, everybody have a chance. Everybody do not have a chance. There are people tonight, right as we are speaking, right in our neighborhoods and in Toronto and in nearby areas, trying to figure out where they will sleep tonight. I'm not trying to figure that out. I have a beautiful bed. There are people here who are trying in this world who are thinking, where will I get my next meal? I am not one of those persons. I just had sushi for dinner. So I want you to understand, sometimes, especially when you walk in certain power and privilege, we kind of do not understand the world around us, and we say things that are actually ridiculous. So we want you to see color. I don't want you to erase me. I want you to tell your friend, I went to this meeting tonight online, and this drop-dead gorgeous black man was the speaker. I want you to see me. So when you do the color blindness, the avoidance, the silence, it doesn't help. What we want you to do is the awareness, the listening, the education, and the activism. Anybody remember something? Shelly, you remember? You're on my scheme. I'd like to talk to you. Shelly, you remember in 2020 when every workshop people was going about awareness for anti-Black racism, awareness. We were like big on awareness. Do you realize in 2024, 4 years after, there are many of us who are still at awareness? We have not done anything as yet. We have not done anything as yet. We are still stuck at awareness. Awareness is a very good place to be because it's better than ignorance, but it's not nowhere near to action. See what I just said? Awareness is a good place to be because it's better than ignorance, but it's nowhere near action. We really, really want you to act. It's funny you said that in the chat about truth and reconciliation. My heart broke. You know, it's funny when you go to certain spaces and then every time somebody will do something or say something or have a visual that really impacts you. 2 Mondays ago, truth and reconciliation, the day after, which was the Tuesday, we were in a joint lecture at the university, and one of our professors was lecturing, and Professor Neil, and he showed a diagram of the truth and reconciliation, you know, the 93, 95 calls and the boxes, right? And he showed a diagram, and then he showed that only 13, I think I'm right, Shelley, right? 13 has started. Anything has been done to 13. That hit me hard because what it did for me, it gave me a visual. Because we like to hear truth and reconciliation. And we said, oh, we're going to wear the orange t-shirt. Another awareness, orange t-shirt day, which is actually it's not orange t-shirt day, it's truth and reconciliation, right? And we wear the orange t-shirt, we take it off, throw it in the dirty bin, and we're going to search for it about this time again next year. Nothing else. When I saw that visual, it really impacted me. Thank you so much, Danny. I see that. Powerful. Thank you, Danny. That's my original. Enough love. When I see that, I ask myself, Andrew, that's me. I'm talking to me. That's talking to me now. This is me. I said to myself, I said, Andrew, what is there that you are going to personally do to make sure a couple of years from now that visual changes? And I said to myself, I'm going to figure out the level of intentionality. And I can tell you, I had the conversation about a couple of days after with leadership. I said, I want to be a part of something. Thank you so much, VWest. Absolutely. Thank you so much, VWest. In the chat, VWest. Thank you. It's both Orange T-shirt Day and National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. They are separate but similar. Thank you so much. Understand that. Right? And I want us to understand the intentionality that is necessary behind what we're doing. So as we go on, we talk about the importance of developing meaningful relationship that move us beyond the performance and the inauthentic ways in which we continue perpetuating racism and whiteness. How are we doing that? And the pictures, if you notice the pictures in my slide, they are very, very deliberate. Because we are talking about the ways in which we are growing and the ways in which we want to show up in our class to do the work of an anti-racist educator. One of the first things for you to do is to ask yourself, how are people positioned? How are the characters, how are racialized folks and Black folks represented and presented? Listen what I just said. How are Black and racialized folks represented and presented in your content? I am very big on telling my story. And so when I do work, I say to people, I am the lion telling my story. I said, we're not doing the hunter. We are doing the lion. I said, you will never gather in my space and we are going to talk about the hunter. I said, it's not going to happen. I have turned down opportunities, speaking opportunities, when I realized they want me to focus on the hunter. And I said, I want to focus on the lion story. So I want you to understand that we have to take those moves. The focus must be placed on systematic changes in leadership, in curriculum, in pedagogy. And I know there are persons saying, well, Dr. Campbell, I'm just the grade 1 teacher. I am just the librarian. I am just the new professor. I'm just started my job. The word just is not as deficit as you and I making it, you know. The word deficit, the word just is not as deficit as you making it. It may actually be more dynamic that you, because you are fresh. Your ideas are new. You are unmessed with. You are a little bit more unbothered. How about that? How about the strength in you being just? And think about, you are just a teacher, you're just a new professor, you're just a librarian, you're just a mother, you're just a parent, you are just an LGBTQ person. How about using that freshness, that newness, that power, and say, what can I do? I'm not asking you to go to change leadership, Sarah. You may never have access to the leadership room. You may never have access to that. But you may have access to curriculum. You may have access to pedagogy. You may have access to the football team, the basketball team, the dancing team. You may have access to be the one in charge of the assembly next week. You may have access to the library. You may be on the purchasing committee. You get to decide which books are purchased. People forget that the things we see happening in schools are done by individuals in school. Let that sit with you for a minute. Let that sit with you for a minute. I think we seem to forget that the things we see happening in school are done by individuals in school. When we see racist things happening, homophobia and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, things are happening in school. They're actually happening in school when we are present. It's not like when the school closed at 3:30, like the racism ghost goes in and do some, you know, the ghost of racism walk in the halls when we are all gone home. Sarah, you get what I'm saying? Because I feel like when we talk about these things, it's like, well, did you know what happened? No, we were all at home when the racism ghost or the racism boogeyman went into the school. And so, we don't know what's going on. Yes, we do. We were in the staff. Yes, we were in the staff room when that teacher said that's something that was racist. You were right there by the coffee machine, standing up. You were right on the committee when they decided we are going to use the same girls to do the performance because those are the girls we are used to, and the other girl who we're going to choose, she's new and she just came from India and she's not Canadian fully yet, so we're not going to use her for the performance. True story. You are right there. You are part of that. You are part of that when you realize that we're using the panel of judges and the panel of judges look the same every single year, but nobody wants to disrupt it because you don't want to have a problem with your co-worker. I'll tell you about that story another day, how I disrupted that. Way before I was Dr. Campbell with a title. A lot of us, we are waiting for titles and permanence to act. I see a lot of people doing that. They are waiting for a level of title and permanence to act. Sometimes you do need that because you do need a higher access. I get that. Don't think I don't get that. But sometimes we have really stood on the sideline in inaction. We have to step forward to challenge. Who will do the challenge? Anybody remember that story learned in school? Some of you learned in school. Who will bell the cat? Anybody remember that story? Who will bell the cat? There's a town full of mice and a cat is coming into the town and all the mice have to scatter. It's a whole big situation because they are scared of this cat and they keep a meeting. So we have to get rid of this cat. We have to do something. We want to figure out, we need to know when the cat was coming. They had a meeting. They had a mice assembly, seats at the table, mice with titles. And they decide, a great idea, we are going to bell the cat. We're going to put a bell around the cat's neck. So when he's coming, we hear the bell and we can all scatter away and, go away from danger. And we had a big problem happen because nobody decided. Nobody volunteered. Nobody stepped forward to bell the cat. We have to understand that belling the cat is risky. We have to understand that belling the cat is going to take some form of courage. We have to understand that belling the cat, somebody's going to be exposed to a level of danger. We have to understand in belling the cat, you may have to face the paws and the claws of the cat. Belling the cat, somebody may have to hear that sneer and that meow and that snarl that the cat gives and that hiss. That's the reality. I am really kind of tired. I don't know if tired is the right word, but I'm really kind of let's say I roll my eyes when I see people who are doing anti-racist work are like, oh my God, I went to talk about this on my anti-racist stuff and people were looking at me funny and I felt so bad and I could feel people staring at me and I felt so this. I was like, did you go to give out candies and Skittle bars? Like, were you giving out slice of cheesecake? Like, you see what I'm saying, right? We have to know what we're doing. Anti-racist work, dismantling work, this kind of work are brave work. So we need to understand that these work are brave spaces we are calling you to be. So as we get into it some more, what is the central role? I love this question. It comes to us from the first page. It says, what is the central role of an educator in our current times? What does it mean to be an anti-racist and to be an anti-racist educator? What does it mean to be an activist educator? How does activism look in practice in the classrooms? These questions are explored and discussed. Ask yourself those questions. What does that look like in your school? Because it's going to look different in different schools because of the population and because where people are at. There's many schools that are way more progressive than others. So education has to be used to stand up to injustice. That's why we are so honored to have the group tonight, the Canadian Association for Social Justice Education. A group of people coming together to do the work. So you remember that example I used about our question conferences and their purpose and the value? Until I understood the purpose and the value. Until I understood that every time for the last 4 years, I have been to a conference with Professor Ardivani Zadarad, Professor Zura Abawe, Professor Stephanie Tutas, Professor Ann Lopez, Professor Kashka Watson, many professors, that we keep publishing books. Our voices are in the books. That's big. Because when I was at the university, Shelley, I don't remember one book, I can't remember one book that the professors were racialized that I read. I don't. And so I am publishing and writing the books that I never had. So I want you to understand from my first story that after I questioned myself, I sat in deep reflection and reflexive practice. I said, well, this is the purpose. It's deeper than the 15 minutes. It's deeper than the mic and the stage and the talk and the greetings. It has bigger purpose. And I can say I am honored to be a part of the bigger purpose. And I'm happy to see people who are part of the Canadian Association for Social Justice and Education writing and publishing. 5 years from now, I could teach an entire program with just textbooks written by Black and Brown and Indigenous folks. I actually could do that. I actually have a lot of books in my house and at school that are written by people that I know. Professor George Day, Professor Ann Lopez, Professor Lance McCready, professors from other places, Wendy McKee, those professors from all over, Black and Brown and Indigenous people. I want you to understand what that looks like. I want you to understand the intentionality needed in this work. So how are we doing this work? What does it mean to be an anti-racist activist educator who advocates for the needs of children and families you serve? Time for another beautiful story. When I was a young teacher, 1995, out of Teachers College. 1995, I left Teachers College. I taught 2 years as a pre-trained teacher before that, but my first trained year of teaching was 1995. I was always been this person, but I didn't have words for it, Curtis. You know, we don't have labels and titles for everything, right? Like now, right? I just know that I don't like to see people being hurt or bullied or teased or left behind or excluded or be left out or be pushed out of a circle. I don't like to see people being put class, being teased, being bullied, being name called. I've never liked any of those things. And they happen to me as well, but I never liked them for anyone. And as a young teacher, just out of Teachers College, I went to my school that I used to teach at, and I did very well. So when I went to the school to get a job, the principal looked at me, Curtis, and she said, you could get any class you want. Barbara Reed, Waterford Primary School in Portmore, Jamaica. I was a very, 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 very good young man when it comes to teaching. And she wanted to give me just any good class. And those days people want to get the A class and the B class. Because we stream in those days, you know. Oh, there's some horrible things that we have to unlearn. When I say unlearn, I could tell you things that I learned, Curtis, that I'm telling you, if I didn't unlearn them, I would not be this person today. I grew up in a system that we had 6 grade 1, 6 of each class, and it was streamed from grade 1A, grade 1B, grade 1C, grade 1D, grade 1E, grade 1F. The children were in grade 5F. They knew they were the last on the list. They behaved like they were the last on the list because nobody spoke to them in a way that let them feel any other way than last on the list. So when I come to speak to you, I know what I'm talking about. I'm coming from those spaces. I taught at a school, 1,800 little children, and we had classes streamed from grade 1, from A to F. And in those days as teachers, you want to take the A or the B class because everybody else is trouble. See the narrative we're used to? See the deficit? And I turned to the principal and I said to her, I would want to open a reading class. She said, we don't have a reading class. I said, can we create one? She said, we don't have a room. I said, but we have old room locked up, old close-up room locked up. There was an old economics room, old stove and fridge and benches. I cleaned that room myself with my own 2 hands. And I turned it into a reading class. And when it was open for the boys and the girls who could not read in grade 5 and grade 6, they were too embarrassed to come to the room. So I had to go to the room and maybe threaten them a little bit, discipline them a little bit. You know, those days, all discipline was different, to pull them into the room. I tell you no lie, Curtis. In less than 4 weeks, that room became, at Waterford Primary School, that room became the room of all rooms. I clean it myself every Friday. You see, when you talk about anti-racist, I'm going to go somewhere very delicate, and I want you to come with me. I want you to come with me, everybody. When we talk about disrupting and being anti-racist, a lot of you always think we are doing this. Let's go for a march. Let's go to push against. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's break down. Let's catch this building on fire. Let's do this. All of that is important. All of that is necessary. The breaking down, the tearing down, the bar, all of that is necessary. The marching, the sitting, the encampment, the lying, the chaining yourself to the building. I have done all of that. I was one of the persons who in, I think it's 2015, 2016, I was in the intersection of Done and Dundas, telling the cars, run over me, run over me. Happy they did run over me. I'm here today, alive. Because I was protesting in Young and Dundas for some cause. I have done that. But I'm going to tell you this. Lean with me right now. Somebody said they are with me. I like when you text me back in the box, you know. Thank you, West. V West. I like when you're with me, V West. And I tell you something. A lot of you don't realize your power lies in your building up, not tearing down. A lot of us are good at tearing down, and we need that. But a lot of us don't understand the power in building up. So for me, at that time, my advocacy was totally about building up little black boys and girls, giving them the self-esteem. This mouth you see I talk with, I have had this long ago, for years. I would put those children in my classroom, and when I finished teaching, we would talk about how beautiful you are, how amazing you are, how wonderful you are. I pumped life into those children. That's building. We are disrupting colonial structures and logic of who they are, what they are, how they can become, what the possibilities are. So I want you to realize the work in anti-racist, it's also about the ways in which you, watch me carefully now, ways in which you celebrate, ways in which you cultivate, ways in which you nurture, the ways in which you protect, the ways in which you enhance blackness. The ways in which you do that for racialized folks and indigenous folks, the ways in which you center them in excellence. The ways in which you support blackness, the ways in which you show up for black and brown folks and indigenous folks, the ways in which you create space, the ways in which you say to someone, I know someone. I know this guy who could do this. I know this person. The way in which you call my name and your name and other person's name in the room, the ways in which you make space. A lot of racialized folks, we constantly struggle because those who have access do not realize the power they have to just simply open the door and keep the door open. So I'm not sending you outside to protest tonight. I'm not sending you outside tomorrow to lay down in the middle of Young and Dundas so a car could run over you. I'm not saying to chain yourself to any building and put a tent on the floor of any building. I am telling you, there are ways for you to disrupt racism. And the ways you can do that are also what I call the bridge building ways, the affirming ways, the supporting ways, the pouring in ways. So make sure you write that down, because a lot of us always come to battle and realize that after the war, we need someone to attend to the soldiers. We need someone to build the homes. We need someone to build the families. We need someone to cook and feed and nurture and heal and tend to these things. So remember your role. Education has to be used to disrupt colonial logic. It has to be used to do that. It has to be used to question what is normal. Ardivan said it in this poem. What is normal? To radically transgress, transform. Well, transgress is actually a good word as well. Transform institution to, here we go, to value and prioritize equity and social justice. Ask yourself that magic question. In a school like I am at, how would I prioritize equity? How do we prioritize equity for all? How do we prioritize equity? Ask yourself how you do that. Education as it, how do you value and prioritize equity and social justice? How are you assessing policies and practices? How are you questioning it? I'm going to tell you something. Don't think every time I go to a meeting where I have a seat at the table that I go there and I disrupt the meeting and I get to win. No, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised the number of meetings I have gone to and repeat the same thing. The same exact thing I have repeat 2 years in a meeting. But I realized, Sarah, that my job is to go to those meetings and keep on repeating it. You see, the world thinks the change is going to happen overnight. Many people are frustrated easily. But if you understand systematic racism, you understand it's not going to fix overnight. But you can chip away in so many ways. I am in a celebration mood as we speak, Sarah. A celebration mode. 3 years of strong work and partnership and leadership by myself and Professor David Montemero to get and establish and improve and increase Black educators in our school system. If I tell you the amount of meetings I have gone to, all these meetings are not in my pace, in my job description. Meetings on Saturdays and evenings, way outside of my job description. Because I know for a fact it's not going to happen if I stay within my job description. So I give the extra time to the cause. I give the extra time to the work. I give the extra time to the meeting that is necessary. I show up many evenings, Saturdays. Show up on my lunchtime. And today I see 34 Black students in a cohort at OISE. That's major. I can tell you we have a major problem happening. The lack of Black and brown and racialized bodies and indigenous teachers in our schools. How do I know that? We have just worked on placing over 400 students in schools. If I tell you some of the issues of getting schools, there are schools that have no teacher on staff who are racialized in 2024. Not one. There's a lot of work to be done. All of us could be busy all day, 24 hours doing this work. So think about what you are able to prioritize. And as you say that, I want to say something very important. Because we are so used to, not me, but a lot of us are used to the infighting and the oppression Olympics. We have not realized yet that white supremacists, as somebody said in a speech the other day, that rich white men, years upon years upon years, have taught Black and brown people that Black and brown people are the problem. And so we struggle a lot with each other, not realizing we need to learn how to walk and work in solidarity, because until we are all free, it's not happening. And so when I talk about being anti-racist, I'm talking about making sure that all our students, various identities, have that opportunity to grow and to bloom and to become. How are we going to do that? We have to be intentional about how we do that. So our definition of activist pedagogy is rooted, and this comes from a chapter written by myself, Ardivan, and Professor Ardivan and Professor Abarwe, Zura Abarwe, is that it's rooted in ways in which we are intentional and critically conscious. I love that term. Critically conscious of who we are as educators. So many of us, we lack that criticality. So many of us, we lack the consciousness. We have to be critically conscious of who we are as educators, the voices we cite, the diversity of pedagogies we engage with, the range of topics, the ways we are centered in our classroom. Do you know, I'm going to go somewhere right now. Do you know how many of us are feeding and nurturing colonial ways? Because that's what we know. And we have not invested the time to unlearn some of those things. We are not disrupting some of those things. We are not disrupting some of those things. We have to ask ourselves, how are we intentionally disrupting racism, disrupting exclusion, disrupting hate? How are we intentionally doing that as educators with our voices, with our subject content, our pedagogy, our classroom practice, the ways we show up, the things we say, the things we celebrate? The language we use, the vocabulary, the words we use, the pictures on our wall, the visuals on our PowerPoint, the books we choose, the poems we choose, the songs we choose. We have to be a little bit more mindful in our choices. We have to be a little bit more mindful, a little bit more aware of how powerful we are. And I want you to think about 3 areas. I want you to do that. Is in your curriculum, is in your classroom practice, is in your pedagogy. How you teach, how you show up in the school, how you speak, who is centered, who is not. What are we celebrating? How are we celebrating? What is the language? When you hear deficit language in your school, how do you correct students? When you hear racial slurs, a big thing going on, principals are overwhelmed with racial slurs in our schools. When you hear that, how do you respond to it as a teacher? I heard a teacher correct a student. I asked about, using racial slur, and the correction did not sound nowhere like a correction. I said, does he know he's wrong? I said, I don't think he knows he's wrong. I said, the way you corrected him doesn't make it sound like he knows that what he did is wrong. Even those things we have to look at. How are we having those conversations in our school? How are you correcting a child who is using hurtful language to their peers? What is that conversation like? Because if it sounds like Cinderella and Rapunzel, then that's not it. That's not it. It has to sound like something was said wrong. I've had parents come to me more than once, say, Mr. Campbell, you talked to my child about something he did, and he came home and he cried. And I said, I'm concerned about what is the issue. She said he cried. I said, well, he's supposed to cry. I said, Christ said he's in remorse. I said, I would be shocked if he came home and he laughed. I would have been devastated if you say to me, my child came home, you correct him about something he said that was racist and hurtful and rude, and he laughed. He's saying to you, Mr. Campbell spoke to him and he cried. That is an evidence of remorse, and I hope you don't do it again. But a lot of you teachers don't understand that that's your power and that's your place. You think they're going to report you to the superintendent and they're going to fire you. Fire you for what? And I want you to think about that. So I love this. I love this. And I hope you can take pictures of all of my slides. I hope you're doing that. You can write notes. You can take pictures of my slide. If you weren't doing that, well, you can start doing that. Take picture of any one of my slides. Take picture of me as well. I like a good photograph, right? I like a good picture, unapologetically so. Critical thinking questions. How might you act with intentionality to make space for and center and amplify all voices within your community of learners, particularly for those from equity deserving groups? How would you do that? And that comes to from, of course, page 15 of the text. How would you do that? And I like the word amplify, because sometimes our students do have voices and they do speak, but sometimes we need to amplify their voice. How can you do that? How do you do that? And I love that the chat is also rich. I'm noticing the comment. Thank you, Jen. I see you. I see the comments in the chat. It's rich with conversation. It is not a closed chat. If you notice, it is not a webinar. I don't want a webinar. And that's why I'm so happy that you come here with a level of community. You can't turn your mic off and disturb it, right? So we're not having a webinar, because I want you to be able to text and participate and chat in the chat box and drop something in the chat respectfully and share a content and share an idea. So if there's anything I'm talking about and you have a little resource there and you said, you know what, I would love to give Dr. ABC this, well, give all of us it. Put it in the chat box. Share. And I thank you for all of those who are commenting in the chat. Disruption of systematic injustices requires intentionality. I think we have repeated this 5 times tonight already, and I'm going to repeat it maybe 5 more times before the night is over. It's not going to just happen. A lot of us want to go sleep in our bed tonight and wake up the next day and everything is just great. That's not the world we live in. That's not the world we live in. Sad to say. And so we want us to really think. We are reminded what Day 2016 outlined in his article, Professor George Day that is, focusing on decolonizing the university. It's not new. A lot of you behaving as if you create the word decolonize as something new. I know people pretend as if they created the word decolonize. It's not new. From 2016 and way before that, Professor George Day said in pursuing decolonizing practices, we are undoubtedly going to ruffle feathers and be seen as subversive. Didn't you know that? I go to meetings and I say certain things and I walk away knowing that people don't happy what I say. But that's fine. I didn't go for happiness. I have happiness at home. Or I have happiness when I travel. That's why I like to go on the plane. I love the plane. The plane is a happy place for me. I love the plane. I love the plane. And I like disembarking from the plane, Jennifer. I like coming off the plane. And I see when the car picked me up to go to the airport. I like a welcome drink. That is my happiness. I like a bathing suit and the beach and the pool. And I like the hot tub. That is where I go for happiness. I don't go to the equity committee for happiness. I go there to disrupt. I want you to understand what I'm saying, Victoria. So you understand. Because too many of us are caught up in, well, that was a rough meeting. Well, it's a rough meeting. We're trying to decolonize. We're trying to disrupt homophobia. It's going to be a rough meeting. We are trying to be anti-racist. It's a rough meeting. We are calling out. It's a rough meeting. We are breaking down barriers. It's going to be a rough meeting. And you have to go to those meetings, engage in those meetings, and leave feeling okay. That it wasn't a great meeting. It wasn't Skittles. You lose your appetite. I've been to lunch meeting and I can't eat because I lose my appetite. But when I come home, I have my good piece of pork chop or my oxtail or my cow skin or my chicken feet or whatever I'm going to have. So you have to ask yourself, how are you doing that? And something that Professor George did, he said decolonization requires, everybody write that word down, pedagogy of rage. I didn't say it. The professor I look way up to, Professor George, I look so up to him. Amazing professor. Amazing professor. He said decolonization requires pedagogy of rage as we wrestle with and contest the existing order of things. Change, of course, does not come easy nor happen immediately. We must therefore be prepared to challenge the resistance to decolonization that we will encounter. We must also embrace a radical politics that seeks genuine transformation through equity, social justice, indigenous, anti-racist, feminist, and anti-oppressive work. Those who fight oppression and colonizing relations never walk alone. Those who fight oppressions and colonizing relations never walk alone. Creating, here we go again, an intentional change requires extensive reflection. Know who you are, know what you're doing. Intentionally cannot be one-time occurrence or performative. To intentionally center all students must be seen on a daily basis. It's not a one-time done. It's not a one-time done. It's how we constantly, intentionally, all the time, making sure our voice is consistent. Because some of us are going to be caught in inconsistency, you know. That's where people lose respect for us. And they realize some of us are actors and we are performers. because they catch us in an inconsistency, because your words and your writing say one thing, but your actions are saying something else. Oh, thank you, Victoria. Of course. Students see to our performances, you know. Students see to our performances. Absolutely. Absolutely. Take note of the pictures I'm using. Very intentional. About who needs to show up in class, who needs to learn. All of us needs to learn this. Every one of us. Even many of us as racialized folks. I know I said again, I want to underline it. Many of us as racialized folks, we are also feeding this whole issue, you know. Because of our own internal racism. Because of our own colorism, shadism, our own socioeconomic issues, our allowing society to put us against each other, the ways in which we fight each other for scarce benefits and crumbs. I said it publicly more than once. I'm not fighting no black person and no racialized person for crumbs. The university, they do that a lot. And so we are always in a competitive mode. You see, people come here for the truth. I'm going to do poetry. I'm going to do the truth. Some of you like it cute. It's real. The ways in which we have seen it. They dangle one position in front of 100 racialized folks, and we are fighting for it. And we have to compete and overextend ourselves. Some of us, we're supposed to be at the Olympics for what I call emotional gymnastics. We have to contort and bend ourselves to be so much that the university wants. When we are already good enough, I'm not saying you must give the university what they want, but you have to also understand you are already what the university wants. Sometimes we forget we are qualified. We are good enough. We are educated. We are amazing. We are stars. I remember my first time in Oise in a class where a student did something, stepped to me in a very, very serious way, very rude way. And I had to let that student know, pull up now, stop a minute. Let me tell you who I am. Let me introduce you to who Dr. Campbell is. And I did it in no uncertain way. I could tell you that. And when I was finished, I walked up the classroom, and the same student, now in tears, wanted to talk to me. And I said, you have already gotten enough of my time. You don't get one more minute. And I guess they went to the 12th floor. That's where the leaders are. I don't know. I'm still here. That's 2018. I guess, I don't know if they went to the 12th floor. I guess that's where they went. But I didn't care. You have to know, as racialized folks especially, we have to know how to show up for ourselves. We need to learn how to show up for ourselves. Because what I'm trying to explain to you is when you spend all your time disrupting, are you spending time also building? Victoria, this is a serious one, you know. I'm telling you now. This is a serious point I'm making. I have seen a lot of racialized folks, a lot of indigenous folks, a lot of black folks who are hurting because they have spent so much time investing, just breaking down, fighting, disrupting, and they spent no time on themselves building. And then they become easily disposed of. When I see racialized folks around me and they talk to me about where they want to be in life and the things that are pushing against them, I said, let's talk about doing your master's. I said, have you considered your PhD? I said, have you considered applying? I said, you should apply. I told somebody today. I told somebody today. I said, you should apply and apply and apply again. I said, apply and apply and apply again. We have to learn how to show up. It's a part of the work, how we show up for ourselves. Because too many times we are not showing up for ourselves. I know I'm on point enough. I know I'm on point. I get to speak to racialized people. I get to sit with Black women who are hurting. I get to have a conversation just this week with an Indigenous woman who have put every single thing she poured out into the school, and she feel like she's just like invisible. And I said, what have you poured into yourself? Nothing. Nothing. Empty. And now they see that she's empty. They want to say goodbye. Goodbye, empty person. Goodbye. Yes, we know you poured into the building, but you poured nothing into you. Goodbye, empty person. So I know what I'm telling you to do. Okay? So as we do this work with intentionality, here is another critical question for us. What are some of the ways that you can identify, name, and disrupt deficit thinking in a weaponizing of difference in the educational institution? How would you strategically navigate the challenges that will come your way as part of advocating for change? Our next question, as an educator, how might you work to navigate the double-edged sword regarding the purpose of education, especially when considering the hidden curriculum and normalized ideologies in education? That's a very, very heavy one. Please remember, please, everybody's listening to me, remember that I am aware that the institutions that many of us are trying to disrupt, we get our salaries from. I am no fool. And that's why there are ways to skillfully do the work. Because I know many of us, the very spaces we are trying to disrupt are the spaces we get our livelihood from. You don't need to be fearful. You need to find out what is your way of doing the disrupting work. And so we're going to end there. We're going to stop there. Thank you so much for engaging. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being in the space. I am going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to also remove the pin from myself. And I am going to leave some space at this time. Remember, the recording is still on, everybody, so be mindful. I'm going to turn it off in about maybe 10 minutes, but we're going to leave the space for anyone at this point who would like to take a minute to ask a question, to share a comment. I know, Ardivan, you've been in the background listening there. I know, Jennifer, I see you. I know I also saw that there were more leaders from the association who came into the room. Some of my students, I see my students, I see Nana, I see Joseph, I see Nikita, I see all my students. I see you, Zarifa, I see students, I see people, Manu, I see you, Tanya. Is there any student in the class, in the room, that I have a question that myself or Professor Ardivan or Professor Manu, any one of us can respond to it? If we don't have the answers, then we'll say we don't have the answers. That's what we do here. Are there somebody who has a comment, a 1 minute, 2 minute comment as you'd like to make? Go ahead and raise it and I will take that. Remember what the topic is all about. We're not going to go off topic, please. All right. If you want to make a 1 minute, 2 minute comment, please raise your hand to do that or ask a question. That's one of my students. Alera, jump on it, Alera.
Sorry, you see me in my kitchen cooking the food for dinner as I sit here and nod, and I'm like, yes, this all makes sense. My question is, you talked a lot about giving back to oneself and showing up for yourself, and it's something that I actually was looking at today because you came up on my LinkedIn, Dr. ABC, but like, what? I don't know how to put it, but like, how are you finding ways to disrupt and build and not like keep yourself sane, but maintain some semblance of self and positivity and confidence when everything around you sometimes feels like it's crumbling? Like what advice do you have? What has worked for you? What do you do? I'd be really curious to hear.
Thank you, Alera, for that. And continue cooking in your chicken. She's cooking in her kitchen. She's one of my amazing students in 5708. Honored to have you in the class, Alera, and the ways in which you engage. You are indeed a leader. And I say that to you in a lot of power and sense. It's a balance. It's a balance. And when I say balance, it's not 50-50. So some days it's 60-40, some days it's 90-10, some days it's 80-20. I'm going to give you something very personal. September 2024, I know for a fact, is the month on history that I've worked the most in my entire life. September 2024. With what's going on with the Center for Black Studies, with with the new students, with my class, with BFEP, with every single thing. But I'm going to shock you, Alira, and I feel my emotions just shift. It is also the month that I've had the most people stop me and say to me, your skin looks so good, or you look good. It's the weirdest thing. It is the month I've got the most compliment. It's a balance, and I have balance. And some days I was 90-10, some days I was 20-80, some days I was 60-40, some days I was 50-50. But I can guarantee you, though, there was no day when I was 100-0. There was no day that I was 100-0. There was a day I remember I came home maybe 9:30. I left Oisy about 8:30, and I came home 9:30 that night. And I came to the door, and I would never forget, I wanted to go on the computer to kind of check some emails to make sure things were good for tomorrow. And my engineer says, no, don't do that. It's 9:30. I took a beautiful long shower, jumped into my bed, ran downstairs, mixed my favorite drink. I love a ginger beer with a lime and a little Jack Daniels in it. And I made a good, like a double drink, right? Not a single. Come on now, double. And I made a good drink and come upstairs. And then at that time of the night, I ordered what I like. I like some good wings so I could chew the bone while I watch TV. And then I turn on my favorite TV on Netflix and start to shout at the TV, because I like to shout at the TV to say who is the murderer or who is hiding or something. I like to talk to the TV. I was so good for the rest of that night. For about 2 hours, I did that. So you have to find the little ways to do that, Alira, and it's important. I see V West have a hands up. Go ahead, V West. You want to jump in? You want to say something? You want to add to that? Please do that. Go ahead, V West.
Yeah, it's a different topic. Yes. I was at the Oisy CLD conference this last week and on the weekend, yes. And it gave us a short presentation, but someone afterwards was asking, was really stressing that in education, the most important place to get equity work done will be at the teachers college level. So the work that you are doing is amazing. And a friend of mine who's a principal said she looked to the new teachers coming in to have all of the best, but they came in with so many conservative ideas, and maybe from their practicums, maybe from their professors, and it was same old. And this is a black female principal, and she, it's like, oh, I have to do the work again, right? And so how do we, and I work in government and in education, and as this person was like, you need to do this, I'm like, I would love to. That's not my job, but I would love for that to be. I would love to make sure that teachers colleges were teaching students about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, so that they all knew what to do when the curriculum asks for teachers to do that, and older teachers, or whoever it is that's gatekeeping that is not pushing for that, and I don't have an answer as to how to get that on the curriculum at Teachers College. And does anybody have an idea about how to push that, how to make that more important? So that
I'll jump in there, and then
yes,
Ardaban, or there are about 3 other teacher educators online. Also, I see other person. You want to jump in, just raise your hand. But I'm going to go quick so somebody else can jump in on that, West. Thank you so much. I'm going to be very frank about this one. This is a good one. It's a very good. You are right. The principals are waiting for the young teachers, and the young teachers are in the room. They are listening to me. I know that my students are right there. Students who are in my class, can you come on camera, please? I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you, Victor. I see you, Victor. I see you, Nikita. Let me tell you something. Alyssa, I see you. Let me just say this. You are so right, V West. D'Angelo said something the other day. She said, many of us are taught by white people, or are taught by white people, or are taught by white people, or are taught by white people. It's not about white people now. I'm using that as an example to share with you. Many of our students in our institutions are being taught by professors. Get ready for what I'm going to say. Who also do not have an anti-racist lens. Oh no, we have issues in institutions with professors who are transphobic, homophobic, exclusive, all of those things we have. Don't think that because somebody become a professor, they are all immediately, all of a sudden, become this great person. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So we have students. We have so many of our students who are young and ready to make the changes. Sometimes the way they are getting the content isn't indeed the same old. And so we have to teach them, like Ardivan said in the poem, it says, teach them how to transgress. And so we're doing that with many of them. I can tell you that. But a lot of them sometimes are scared. We're going to the newness. We are going to the institutions. They're going to some of these courses. They go on practicum. They come back with sad news like, well, I was on practicum and I told I couldn't say this or I couldn't do this. And so they're being challenged by systems themselves. So they need to learn the tools of how to challenge systems. It's happening to the university, but it's not happening at a level that is that should happen. It's not there. It's not there. I can tell you, it's not there. It's not there at a high level. I teach a course, anti-racist pedagogy. I teach anti-discrimination. But I could tell you, there are 16 cohorts, and we have maybe 7, 8, 9 different professors teaching the same course. We are teaching it different ways. Not all of us are talking about anti-Black racism in the same way. Not all of us are talking about the issues around us the same way. So we're still giving this power. It's necessary for the people. So that's it. Anybody want to say something on that? I see Aurora. It's a different question. I don't matter. Your hand is up, so let's take you. Go ahead. It is Aurora. Can you tell me your name, please? Please.
Hi, Dr. Campbell. How are you today?
I'm well. Pronounce your name again for us, please.
My name is Aura.
Aura. All right. Over to you, Aura. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a PhD student at York. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for all the passion that you bring into this. I think where I'm at right now, I really need the energy that you're bringing in. So thank you for that. A question I've been sitting with is, in social justice work, we think about that idea that you're speaking to of dismantling. And so, thinking about what are the ways that we can subvert these systems? What are the ways that we can disrupt these practices and resist? But along with that comes so much grief. And, I spent so much time being a student, and now I'm actually working in a program that is restorative justice oriented. And I did not anticipate the grief, and we just don't talk about it in social justice. And so I'm very curious about some practices that you lean into to hold space for that grief.
So I want to thank everyone for being here. What a joyful time. And thanks for all the questions. We had to pause the video because the questions got, in a certain personal space, and I felt the need to not record that part of our conversation, as I normally never do that as well. So I just want to thank you for participating. Thank you. Enough love until next time. Let me just tell everybody, there's a community class that's coming up in January. Nikita and Lera, you're going to love this. It's a community class that is in my heart that's coming up in January that I've been working on. Yes, I'm going to take some of my Christmas to do, but don't worry. I'm not going to be stressed, V West. I'm going to be working on that PowerPoint from a beach somewhere in a tropical island. I don't know where yet, but I've shortlisted already. I've shortlisted 3 places. Don't play with me. I am going to be working on that PowerPoint from the beach, from a what do you call that thing on the beach where they put the big one and they give you the curtain on the side? Oh, I do the most when I go to the beach. And I'm going to tell the waiter to bring me a second or a third. I'll take 3 drinks for the day. And I'll work on a PowerPoint. And it's going to be about how we deserve softness as racialized folks. When I tell you, and I'm going to invite all my friends, it's not just for my Black people, it's going to be for all my people. And you are all my people. I want you all to learn and to understand that you deserve softness. Some of us, we are not taking any softness. I am hard. Let me just make that very, very clear, because one of my students had a challenge with me not talking about race. I am hard. I am a soldier. You're looking at a soldier. I'm a cute son, but I'm a cute soldier. You're looking at a soldier over here. You're looking at a soldier. I have come up the rough side of the mountain, but I also know, Alera, that I deserve softness. I deserve softness. I deserve a good seat. I deserve all of that. And I think we all need to learn to know how we deserve that. So we're going to have that class in January. It's going to be open to everybody. Pull up a chair. I'm going to invite you to bring a drink that night. Oh, yes. I'm going to literally say, bring yourself your favorite drink or your favorite tea. Yes, it's literally, that's going to be a part of it. Bring yourself your favorite drink, your favorite ginger beer, your favorite non-alcoholic drink, your favorite one-shot drink. We're not taking 2 shots, now 1 shot. Your favorite cup of tea, your favorite whatever you like. And we're going to engage in a conversation about how do we take care of ourselves, because softness is actually self-preservation. You got it. I see you got it, West. I see you got it. It is self. Good night, good night, good night. Thank you so much.